Hey everyone, welcome to what's happening this week in real estate. I've got Conrad Zerini here, REMAX, Escarpment REMAX Niagara, and we got Brian Hogbin with Mission 35 Mortgages and myself. So, guys, this is what's happened to us this week at the Golfi Team. We had this listing downtown Hamilton, and we sold it. During the time, it was a vacant house. During the time from the date we sold it to the date it closes, probably about 2 weeks, 3 weeks prior, somebody moved into it, a vacant house.
Oh my God.
So yeah, so crazy. So insane. So what happened was, a lockbox was cut off, and you have to have a pretty strong like to cut that off. It's not just anything. Like it'll ruin the teeth of the cutter. Like that's how strong these lockboxes are. Like it's easier
grinders.
It's
they use a grinder.
It is. It's easier to break into the house than break the lockbox. That's how easy it is. So they must have grinded or whatever the lockbox off this vacant house, and what they did was they advertised it and rented the house out. So thank God the owner of the house shows up there at least twice a week. Shows up, somebody's living in there. So somebody's living in there, and they're like, what's going on? So they call us. We're going, let's call the police, this and that. And, this could be an issue, a landlord-tenant issue kind of thing, couldn't it?
Yeah, definitely. They're part of they're a tenancy.
Yeah. So anyway, the police were called. The police escorted them out. They were trespassing, and the people were like, "What? We gave money to this Corey guy." Yeah. They said, "Corey." They don't have a number. They don't have a name. They're just Corey. So this Corey guy probably advertised this house. Probably advertised it cheap because he knows the cheaper it is, he's going to have a flock of people. The first one that probably gave him cash, boom. And that's it. Can't find this guy anymore. So anyway, the people were escorted. They left. I mean, the people that rented weren't really had a lot of great stuff in the house. So basically, a lot of that stuff went into garbage. But I think we have to notify the real estate board and everybody, because I don't think this is going to be the first time this is happening.
No,
and so we will notify the board, and to be very careful with vacant homes out there that have sold. Like either this guy's got access to information, Conrad and Brian, that like you know that once it's sold, there's nobody gonna be looking at this house anymore.
Yeah,
you're just waiting for the closing date.
Right.
So somebody's got access to information that they shouldn't have. And
well, they would know when the closing date is then, right? They would know, because you would need at least 30, 60 days to
well the guy doesn't care. He got his first and last month's rent from these people, and he's gone. He doesn't give a shit.
Right?
He doesn't care. He doesn't care. So the one thing is scary about this situation is that it could go under the Landlord-Tenant Act. You know what I'm saying? Like that, like it could go under there, but these people didn't. I mean, I think the most they were in there was maybe 2 days. That's it. And
well, it's what tenant does due diligence on who owns the house, and I think that's the other thing you got to really look at. Who, and it's not just happened with lockboxes; it's happened with seniors. That seniors go off to a retirement home, and they're not quite ready to sell the house, and somebody gets in, calls a locksmith, and says, this is my house, whatever. They're in the house, and they get the locks changed, and the poor person in the family's not checking the house enough, and people are they'll find an opportunity, which is very sad, especially this time of year. Those people have to be like they're homeless.
Yeah, no, for sure they're homeless. Yeah. Well, anyway, did you read in the paper? Canadian NBA star wins lawsuit to undo purchase of mansion where Ontario crypto king lived. So basically, this crypto king guy, bad character, I think took $40 million, only put 2% of that money into crypto, and he, basically a lot of investors and some really bad investors, meaning bad people, invested with this guy, and they want him. They want to kill him. So and a lot of people are going to the house where he lived in. He was renting, and they want to burn the house down. Like he basically signed a lease saying rent to own. So he was paying $45,000 a month on the rent to own on this property in Burlington. So anyway, the seller sells it, and this MBA guy buys it. And people are knocking on the door. People are threatening. People want to burn the house down. They're gonna that's a scary situation.
Mm-hmm.
And,
oh yeah, totally. Yep.
And so anyway, he said, "Screw this! I'm gonna sue the seller for not disclosing that this guy was a criminal, and that people were chasing him." So the one thing is, and he won the lawsuit. He won. Basically, the judge ordered him to buy back the house. Now, the seller is going to appeal it, which
I would imagine. Yeah.
Which I was surprised that the judge ordered this guy to buy back the house. Now, okay, people rent out houses. There's criminals everywhere.
Yes,
and we can't dictate because a criminal lived here, it's tarnished. You know what I mean? Like I get it. Like, people don't buy houses. Maybe somebody who's murdered in a house. Maybe somebody is like if it was a mob guy and there's a hit on his head, you won't want to buy it until he's dead, right? So because then he's out of the picture.
Yeah.
So anyway, but what do you think the appeals?
Well, look,
what do you think?
I don't know. We're seeing clauses now in offers coming through for the last before this case. Looking up if there was any illegal activity, other than grow up, but more that kind of thing, and was an owner. We did have one. It was in the area of Bluebell and Ancaster. The original Meadowlands, right? We had one, and the poor people, the buyers, they were actually taken in their garage and they were pistol whipped. Wow. Yes, they thought yes, and it was actually it was seniors, so it was a multi-generational family. They were the buyers, and it was a drug dealer's home. And it happened about maybe 6-7 years ago to this company. And yes, and they went to our licensing body to see if the licensing body would say, and we came out clear on it, right?
How can you know, like, you know what I mean, like
material facts, right? Like there's always so much, and then buyer beware, right? Like Google the address, for God's sakes. You know what I mean? Like like I think every prudent buyer should be Googling the address, and they see the seller's names. I don't think good realtors do it themselves. We Google the owner's names all the time just to know what we're coming into. And I think a good buyer rep would say, I've done here's the owner's name. We Googled them and Googled the address just to see if there was a grow up or somebody broke into it. You got to do due diligence, and I think it's buyer beware is a huge caveat emptor, man.
That's the same thing that's happening in the lender world. We had an incident where, because we're Googling buyers' names now, because you could see a credit report, you see everything else. We had one where a guy had a job washing transport trucks, and he was making about $90,000 a year washing transport trucks, and we thought, okay, maybe I don't know how much that goes for, but Googled his name. He was not washing transport trucks 3 years ago. He was behind bars for selling drugs. So now like we have to do that stuff all the time now, because that doesn't show up on the credit report, doesn't show up in the income verification, right? So I think on all aspects of the business, using Google is the easiest tool to do due diligence these days.
So question, Brian, like, okay, this guy, let's say he's got a clean credit rating. He was in jail maybe for 5 years, whatever, doing whatever. Now, 3 years, he's working hard and everything. You Google him. If you didn't Google him, he'd probably get approved for the mortgage. But you Google him, would that deter you from, or the banks or the lenders say, hey, listen, I just want to let you know, I'm giving you my due diligence. This guy did spend 5 years in jail laundering money or selling drugs or whatever. Is that something would you just deny him the mortgage and not say anything, or would you say, hey, sorry?
I think it's all about transparency, right? And disclosure. So like if that guy came and said, I legit am washing transport trucks, let's say, for example, and this makes sense and told us the history, I think what lenders typically look for, like to answer your question, Rob, they would still possibly lend to that person if everything makes sense, because everybody's got a past and a history.
Right.
Because if you see multiple red flags on something, if A doesn't make sense and now B doesn't make sense, I'm going to see my way out of the deal.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I like that one.
Wow.
A doesn't make sense. B doesn't make sense. See my way out of that deal.
Yeah.
I got to write that down.
Wow.
That's a new one. You're coming up with these every week
yeah.
now.
It's Christmas time. Yeah, it's Christmas. So. But yeah, it's all got to make sense. If something doesn't make sense, lenders in fraud today with lenders, because fraud is getting so meticulous and detailed, they won't even tell mortgage lenders or brokers what's wrong. There could be a perfect file that everything looks okay. They'll just call up and say, Brian, we're not lending on this file. There's something wrong with it. And I say, what? I have no idea. I've looked at everything. I think it's fine. They will not tell you what's wrong with it because they're worried about brokers telling it to somebody else.
Yeah.
So, but you know what always happens as soon as something like that comes back and you end up telling the person, hey, listen, the bank canceled your file for some reason. Is there anything you want to tell me? Nope. And they disappear.
Right. They know what it is. They know what it is right away.
And you know what, too? It's even stemming back to the broker. We bumped into something where a lender through a broker, okay, didn't lend because the broker had some license that was, very fascinating thing that the actual lender said, we're not going to lend. And the poor person didn't get the money from that source. Right, because they found something. Yeah, there's a lot of technology out there, guys, tons, and there's stuff to deep fakes and all that kind of stuff. There's a company out there that does. You scan your license, and if you're online, and it'll take your license, and you online, it'll match things up, and it'll say, wait a minute, this is not Brian, it's a deep fake. Right, so yeah, it's
hard to get away with anything. Hard
to
get away with anything now, especially with the internet. It's so powerful. Like back in the old days, nobody knew anything about anybody's business. And now, the first thing people do is, Google their name. And having a name with a last name Smith or whatever is the best way to do it, because there's like 2,000 Smiths out there. Who, is this the guy? And then you're searching on Facebook and Instagram. You have to go through them all to find out if it's the right guy. It's you know what I'm saying? It's just it is crazy. But back to the NBA star, it will go appeal. And you were saying, Conrad, chances are he's not going to get it'll get overturned.
I don't think so. Look, if the agreement had something in it, a schedule in the agreement that talked about, this type of a situation, I could see it. But if the agreement was silent on it, you know what I mean? It's like, and come on, think about it. If it's like a house that floods out all the time, right? Yeah. At the end of the day, an act of God or whatever, what the seller's going to buy back the house. Yeah, there was a situation. There's some damages, and I know what they're doing here, because the question they asked the buyer, the one question they said, if you knew that such and such was owning this home, would you have bought the house? And that's the litmus test, which is really, of course I'm going to say no. If I knew that.
Yeah, kidding. I wouldn't have known that guy's name. If I bought the house, I wouldn't know. Apparently they kidnapped him and they beat the crap out of him, and they called the seller of the house and said, "Hey, we want $3 million from you." He says, "I'm not giving you $3 million. Keep doing what you're doing to him. I don't care."
He's behind in rent. I think he had a starstruck judge on this one. It was a total starstruck judge.
For sure.
Lawyers,
if it was anybody else, there's no way that judgment would have went through. So. Yeah. Anyway, guys, I appreciate your time and thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.
Yes.